Shalom Akim, Kahalayim Na Yahabashim Yashabashim Hakudash, and double on Instagrams and apostles. Thadi Ashah for the strength and those who made this video, and Yaratazar, they find this video edifying as well. Really, this is the part 2 to the other video which I named Cud and Clovenfoot. Obviously going into the law, kind of really a back to basics type of video, on just clarifying what cud means, and discerning the clean meats from the unclean meats, man. Which typically is the animals that Israelites or livestock that Israelites were allowed to eat. Typically chewed cud, which is pre-digested food, by the way, and which an indicator of that is the animal having multiple chambers within their stomach, or some people call it multiple stomachs. So that's just a review there. A brief overview of what happened in the previous one, part 1. So Yara to Zoe find this video edifying, man. So this one might be short, but point is to make videos that build up the knowledge of Akim, especially the new brothers too. So Mark 7:1, it says, I'll start reading from verse 1. I'll read for quite a bit, and then just to get the point across, the context across. So this is the part 2. This is Mark 7 and verse 1. Then came together unto him the Pharisees and certain of the scribes which came from Jerusalem. And when they saw some of his disciples eat bread and with defiled, that is to say, with unwashen hands, they found fault. For the Pharisees and all the Jews, except they wash their hands often, eat not, holding the tradition of the elders. So pretty much the Pharisees were on that, hyper hygienic type of spirit, man, where it's like, every time you gotta wash your hands. There's certain times you cannot. Of course, there ain't nothing wrong with being hygienic. Not gonna shun that off, because it is, of course, very helpful, man. Especially when your hands are really dirty. Let's say, you do some construction work or something like that. Of course, it makes sense to wash your hands. But even then, the thing is, it's through Yahweh Shem Yahshua. That's how you stay alive at the end of the day, which requires faith. So, this was one of those minuscule things of which Yahushua didn't really see to be anything to really be bothered about, which of course us brothers can learn from too. Certain things be just minuscule where it's like, come on now, reason. But yeah, verse 4, let's see. So for the Pharisees and all the Jews, except they wash their hands often, eat not, holding the tradition of the elders. And when they came from the market, except they wash, they eat not, and many other things there be, which they have received to hold, as the washing of cups and pots, brazen vessels, and of tables. It says, then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, why walk not thy disciples according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashen hands? He answered and said unto them, well hath Isaiah, which is referring to Isaiah, prophesied of you hypocrites, as it is written, this people honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. You see, because the point is, they're just saying, why are you keeping clean? Which really, that keeping clean also goes into, I guess, keeping up with appearances. So all of these things that, again, just to bring the balance there ain't nothing wrong with washing your hands, but of course, there also isn't nothing wrong if you grab a quick snack despite you having dirty hands, man. That's the point right here that Yahushua was illustrating. So he's about to call him out. He says, well hath Isaiah, Mark 7:6, he answered and said unto them, well hath Isaiah, which is Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah, prophesied of you hypocrites, as it is written, this people honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. He says, howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines and commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of the Most High, which is what actually matters, ye hold the tradition of men, as the washing of pots and cups and many other things, many other such like things ye do. Which this tradition of men, these are just minuscule things, man. Keeping up with the hygiene, probably clothing presentation as well. All of these things really go into the carnal, but the spiritual things are what actually matters, man. So that's why Yahushua called them out. It's like, it's just a little matter that, no need to make such a big deal. So Yahushua is going in here. It says in verse 9, and he said unto them, fool ye, actually before I read verse 9, let me just get that Isaiah precept to support that. Yeah, it is Isaiah 29 and verse 13. So we are around there. Alright, cool. So Isaiah 29 and 13. Wherefore the Lord said, for as much as this people draw near me with their mouth, and with their lips do honor me, but have removed their heart far from me, and their fear towards me is taught by the precepts of men. You see, so they're really into that presentation type of spirit, to look good in front of man, kind of like today how you have the IUIC and certain other groups emphasizing the wearing of fringes, man. And that's where they got the idea of putting fringes on a t-shirt, which doesn't really make sense considering the history of a t-shirt is actually an undergarment. That might even be a future video about. It's one of those things you could quickly research about. Point is, they're focusing on the traditions of men, how men would perceive them. So anyways, let's go back. So Mark 7 and verse 9. And he said unto them, full well ye reject the commandment of the Most High, that ye may keep your own tradition. See? For Moses said, honor thy father and thy mother, and whoso curseth father or mother, let him die the death. But ye say, if a man shall say to his father or mother, it is Corban, that is to say, a gift, by whosoever thou mightest be profited by me, he shall be free. And ye suffer him no more to do aught for his father or his mother, making the word of the Most High none effect through your tradition, which ye delivered, and many such things do ye. So pretty much just calling out their hypocrisy. Let me see this in another mode, in the NLT. So it says in the NLT, but you say it is all right for people to say to their parents, sorry, I can't help you, for I have vowed to give to the Most High what I would have given to you. So Yahusha is pretty much calling them out on their hypocrisy, because of the fact that pretty much using the law to what's it called? I was going to say defend themselves, but rather for their own agendas, because of course, as it says in the previous verse, honor thy father and thy mother. That's part of the law. And of course, part of honoring them, which honor just goes into respecting them, and you respect them really by your actions as well. Of course, greeting them and basic things like that, but financially supporting them too is what you can do, especially in this day and age. So that's part of it as well. But yeah, Yahushua is just calling them out on what they teach. They say, sorry, this is the NLT again, Mark 7 and 11. But you say it is all right for people to say to their parents, sorry, I can't help you, for I have vowed to give to the Most High what I would have given to you. You see, so yeah, man, he was calling them out on their hypocrisy. Let's see the NIV. But you say that if anyone declares that what might have been used to help their father or mother is Corban, that is devoted to the Most High. But anyways, the point is already explained, man. Let's see what verse 12 says in the NLT. So in this way, Mark 7 and 12 in the NLT, in this way you let them disregard their needy parents, You see, so of course we're supposed to help our parents as well. And Ecclesiasticus chapter 3 actually goes into that as well, in terms of honoring the father and mother, and how to do that. But yeah, as I've already explained, man, the honor is really goes into respect, as well as helping them financially as well, because that's how you honor them in your actions as well. Of course, if they go to the spirit realm, then you go to the burial as well. That's also paying your honor too. So again, these are just actions of which you use to then respect your father and mother. Now, of course, that's why we got to pray for. This is why we need mercy. This is why we need mercy. This is why we need strength from Yahweh Shem Yahshua, because of course you get into certain disagreements with them, but Yaratazar, that things cool off between you guys, man. Because that's what we ought to do. Yaratazar, sometimes brothers need some distance from parents. The Most High understands your situation. But you pray, you do what you can, you apologize, do your distance. Pretty much, the saying as they say, love them from a distance. You check on them every now and then. You're right. If they're one of those where they got a demon that constantly tries to provoke you, then again, it's balance. I'll give him his balance. Anyways, let's get back to the point. But yeah, honoring just goes into respecting them through your actions. And as I mentioned, there's several ways a few minutes ago. So verse 14, Mark 7:14, and when he had called all the people unto him, he said unto them, hearken unto me, every one of you, and understand. So everyone listen. That's what Yahushua is saying. There is nothing from without a man that entering into him can defile him, but the things which come out of him, those are they that defile the man. You see that the reason why I did the part 2 is because obviously it's relating to food. That's really the main context, clean meats. Christians would read that, and then they'll presume that they'll be able to eat any type of meat, even the unclean one. But that's hypocrisy as well. You can't just eat any type of meat. You know why? Let me get this for you. Let me get this, because Yahushua was also following the law too, man. So just bear with me. Hold on, 5:17. So Matthew 5:17. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. You see? So if Yahushua has come to fulfill the law, and within the law, as I mentioned in the part 1, Leviticus 11, Deuteronomy 14, the Torah, which has the law within it, first five books of Moses. The thing is, the point is, if he said he's going to fulfill the law, that means he ain't going to do anything that would be contradictory to it, man. And of course, there's a lesson to be learned from Mark 7 that we're reading. He says, there's nothing from without a man that entering into him can defile him. It don't mean that you can just eat clean and unclean meats. No. Because we just read in Matthew 5:17, think not that I come to destroy the law. So he ain't saying that, no, forget the law. He's not saying that. Yahushua is not saying that. He's saying this. He's saying, so the law or the prophets, I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. You see, which means, of course, is to emphasize the law as well, man. And to fulfill the law, which part of the law is knowing about clean and unclean meats, but only eating the clean ones. So it don't mean you're allowed to eat unclean, man. So, get that through your head for the Christians out there. You may come across this video. So, but the things which come out of him, those are they that defile a man. Now, of course, he was teaching a lesson here about the words that come out of your mouth. So if, verse 16, if any man have ears to hear, let him hear, which means if you got the spirit of understanding, okay, understand this. That's what he's saying. Verse 17, and when, because not everyone's going to understand this. That's why you got to have men older than you spiritually to teach you, man. That's the point. That's why we say double honors to the great Muslim apostles. 1 Timothy 5:17. Not just in word, but also in our actions as well. Because honor just goes into respecting a person, and we do that through our actions. So verse 17, and when he was entered into the house from the people, his disciples asked him concerning the parable. What does it mean? Verse 18, and he saith unto them, are ye so without understanding also? Do ye not perceive that whatsoever thing from without, from the outside, entereth into the man, it cannot defile him? Now again, clean meats only, because he came to fulfill the law, as we just read in Matthew 5:17. But to fulfill. So Mark 7 and verse 18 again, and he answered, and he saith unto them, are ye so without understanding also? So do you not understand? Do you not perceive that whatsoever thing from without entereth into a man, it cannot defile him? So you can't corrupt him. Now, it don't mean that the emphasis, the reason why he mentioned it is to emphasize, a person's speech. So verse 19, because it entereth into his heart, it entereth not into his heart, but into his belly. You see, he was talking about food there in this context. Whatever entereth into a man, and typically what enters into a man is food when you consume it, quite literally. So because it entereth not into his heart, which is the heart is representation of the mind. So of course, whatever enters into the mind is the information you receive, whether by hearing it, you read it, or some other way of which you gain that information, man. Which is typically by seeing, hearing your information. So because it entereth, or of course, spiritual downloads like visions, you gotta consider that, man. So because it entereth not into his heart, but into the belly, and goeth out into the drought, purging all meats. So you eat your food, turns into poo, and you poo it out. Now it says in verse 20, and he said, that which cometh out of the man, that defileth the man. For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts. So this was the main thing that he was talking about. The words that come out of a person. For from within, out of the mind of a man. So Mark 7:21, and from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, which is obviously desiring things which are not yours, like desiring things of which your neighbor owns. When I say neighbor, I'm talking about, let's say, a fellow Israelite back in the day. Typically, that would be your neighbor. But people are just desiring what another person owns. Wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. So I want to get into the word lasciviousness. I forgot what that meant. So lasciviousness. Lasciviousness is unbridled lust. So of course, it's not controlled, which lust just goes into desire. Excess, licentiousness, again, lust. Lasciviousness, wantonness, outrageousness, shamelessness, insolence, which is rude. With that excess lust, like looking at another man's wife, desiring another man's wife, and then that's where the evil thoughts proceed, as it said in verse 21. So verse 22, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, lusts, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. So that comes from the evil thoughts of man. All these evil things come from within and defile the man. You see, because those evil thoughts turn into words, and then from words it turns into actions. Or really, from the thoughts it can turn into action straight away. So that's what defile a man, not the darn, not the food. That was the lesson. It's really putting an emphasis on the point of a man's actions, of course, which come after his thoughts. So that was the main point right there. It's not the food they eat. Now, of course, I've already established from Matthew 5:17 which proves why Yahushua wasn't talking about allowing Israelites to eat unclean meats. No, it doesn't mean that. You eat your clean meats, because he said, as it says there, Matthew 5:17, think not that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. So, of course, he ain't going to be doing anything contradictory to the law, man. And he was making this point to illustrate the fact that pretty much the hypocrisy of the Pharisees, man. Holding the traditions of men, but yet, of course, within them they have the evil thoughts, and you could perceive that too. So, and of course, he did mention an example about honoring your father and mother, but yet, they're playing a twisted game by saying just because of the fact that all that they have is dedicated onto the Most High, that they can't support their father and mother. So that was pretty much Yahushua calling them out as well. Since the Pharisees was trying to, the Pharisees were poking at Yahushua with the fact that his disciples didn't wash their hands before they ate food, man. Which one of those things are just minuscule anyways, because at the end of the day, we're under the grace and mercy of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. So grace and truth. Alright, so John 1:17, for the law was given by Moses, but grace and truth came by Yahushua HaMashiach. And grace means favor from the Most High, Yahweh. Grace just means favor in itself. Favor from Yahweh Shem Yahushua. And when you have favor, of course, we have the mercy of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Because remember, we're not perfect. We can't keep all the law. Hence why the grace is there, man. And hence why, Yahushua was cool with the disciples eating with unwashed hands, man. It's one of those minuscule things. That's minuscule just means it's a small thing. Yeah. The reason why, I brought out these precepts is fundamentally because of this. Because in order to understand the points that come across within these scriptures, we've got to go from precept upon precept to support the points and to establish the true understanding of the context of what we're focusing on, which is, for example, this today in this lesson is Mark 7, in terms of unwashed hands and Yahushua's points that was made, to call out the hypocrisy of the Pharisees and the certain scribes there. So anyways, Isaiah 28:10, for precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little. You see, so that's how we're supposed to teach the word. Here a little, there a little, because we know that certain verses, certain scriptures, certain lines within the scriptures will support other contexts or other lines within the scriptures as well. For example, there may be a precept in Proverbs that support a point in a story in like First Kings, for example. So that's also another way of thinking of precept upon precept. It's to really just clarify the understanding of a certain scripture that you're reading. Certain Bibles as well, on the side of them, I think even in the 1611 one, certain 1611 Bibles, they have precepts on the side too. If you look on the corners, it will say like the shortened version of the verse, the chapter and the verse. It will say M-A-T or M-A-T-T, and then it will say the chapter and it will say the verse. And that's close to the actual verse that you're reading as well. But anyways, that's the point of the video. Chances are that you've increased in understanding, man, of how we have the grace of Yahushua, and of course the lesson that Yahushua taught the Pharisees, man. In terms of their hypocrisy, holding to traditions of men, which the traditions of men don't matter. That's the point of this lesson. And also the fact that we're under the grace, which is the favor, and through favor we have mercy from Yahweh Shem Yahushua. We do what we can to do the right thing, but we know that we're in the flesh, and of course we can't do everything perfectly. That's just the point. So yeah, Shalom, Yahweh Shem Shabrakatha, Kahalayim Yahweh Shem Yahshua Bashim Kakudash, and double honors to the great Muslim apostles once more. Shalom.